Gonna be waiting as the room is getting full, hopefully, or not. So we're gonna be doing a small warm-up exercise before Anastasia gets to kick off the presentation. How many of you think you don't have any biases?
Good start, I think.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah, that's a very grounding audience, quite mature we have today. So I can pass on the mic to you.
Thank you. So, hello everyone and welcome. So excited to be here today. Well, I am Anastasia and I am joined with the other Anastasia.
Anastasia too.
Two Anastasias. This is going to be very good, we promise. And I'm up here representing We Lead, which is a nonprofit organization with mission to bridge the gender gap in the tech industry and empower more women to enter, grow, and lead in the field. You might expect us to talk about women in tech, right? Well, no, we won't speak about that because everything that needs to be said regarding this topic has already been addressed in many forums. Instead, we will talk about the responsibility that each and every one of us have, especially those in leadership positions, to drive change and foster greater diversity in the field. So today, me and Anastasia will be exploring what is allyship, especially in daily stand-ups, how we can create agile teams where everyone feels safe and valued, and how you can become better allies in your next meeting, in your next daily stand-up. But first things first, how many of you know what is allyship? Can I see some hands? Nice. Well, allyship goes beyond being supportive. Allyship refers to actions, behaviors, and practices that someone takes to support, amplify, and advocate with others, especially those that they do not belong in the same social identity groups as themselves. And a very important reminder, allyship is not a single action. It is an ongoing action with focus on other people and not on yourself. Remember this. And now you may ask me, okay, Anastasia, and why it is so important? Allyship, why it is so important? And I will answer with some data, because numbers always speak for themselves. Allyship leads to better decision-making. It has been proven that diverse teams in terms of age, gender, ethnicity, leads to better business decisions 87% of the time. Also, allyship increases employee retention up to 50%, because simply, when people feel safe and valued, they stay. Happy employee equals employee retention, so simple equation. And a very important one, allyship, according to several studies, above the average diverse teams lead to 19% more innovation revenue. So these are not just numbers. They highlight that allyship isn't just the right thing to do, it is the smart thing to do. Now let's take a quick look at some barriers to allyship. First of all, fear of saying the wrong thing. Sometimes people are afraid of offending somebody by mistake. And instead of speaking up, they stay silent. But silence doesn't help create change. Another challenge is unconscious bias. And that goes to what Anastasia asked you earlier. We all, and I mean all, carry hidden beliefs and stereotypes we've picked up over time. And these sometimes affect how we treat others. Another challenge is lack of awareness. Sometimes people do not fully understand the inequalities others face, so they cannot understand why allyship is so important or how they can help. Another challenge is discomfort in addressing difficult conversations. And yes, speaking about exclusion, unfair treatments, bias, may feel uncomfortable. And sometimes people do not want to enter such conversations because they feel uncomfortable, they do not feel confident enough to speak up, and other things. And last but not least, performative allyship. Performative allyship refers to being an ally, but only in the surface. For example, posting on International Women's Day. That's not allyship. That's not real and meaningful allyship. So now that I hope that we have a better understanding of what is allyship, I want to pass the mic to Anastasia, the other Anastasia, who will share some practical tips on how you can become better allies in your next meeting or in your next daily stand-up. And she will share some examples from her experience too. So, Anastasia.
Hi. So this is basically for how many of you actually have no idea what a daily stand-up is? Oh, wow. Okay. I see potential Scrum Masters in the room. Wonderful. It is a meeting that we all hold as a team in the morning, and it falls into what we would call the invisible interactions. And it's actually proven that in any organization, this is the reality that people tend to be happy or not, perform or not. And you know it very well that the sum of all of us in this room doesn't equal our team's effort. It can go from 0 to multiplying the sum of all of us. So how we actually interact is at the end of the day, not just how we feel, it's how we perform. There's 3 things we can cover today due to mainly time restriction, but the booth is downstairs. Feel free. There's going to be a small surprise waiting for you to find out more. We're going to be covering 3 things in the context of daily stand-ups. The one is being aware of your own biases. The second one is being proactive, as into saying something, doing something, and I'll share with you some mechanisms on how you can tackle that within the daily stand-up. The third one is pass the mic. So the context offers very well because technically in daily stand-up, you just say what you've done yesterday, what you plan to do today, and whether you have any blockers. And the rest falls into parking lot, which is a great defender actually for being a great ally. We're going to start with the first one. So what is a bias? It's things that we have inside our brain and psyche that they actually help us navigate through the world. This is why bias exists, and this is what our brain is trying to protect us. But actually following them too blindly blurs our objective our objective judgment, and can be a blocker for anything in our life rather than the things we want to achieve individually and collectively. So the first one is the affinity. I'd like you to look around the room for 1 second and find the one person that if you had a stand-up now, you would look into their eyes. Take a moment and look around. Who would you choose? So you probably unconsciously have chosen something that looks like you. This is called affinity bias. Basically, what looks familiar sounds familiar, and this is what we're drawn to. The second one is perception bias. So perception bias falls into having some, let's say, beliefs in our head, and what happens to our brain is cherry-picking the data that just supports this fixed belief in our brain. So to put both into a daily stand-up context. Now, you might be inclined into being more empathetic or wanting to solve your teammate who is a white male Caucasian like you, or who studied data science like you. Consider actually laying back for 1 minute and thinking about that other person who's actually far from you and your traits and your characteristics. How would you actually be a better listener or a team member to that person? The perception bias, again, if you're a senior engineer and you think that this junior engineer has a blocker, and they mention this blocker before thinking, oh, they lack the technical context because, they actually studied political science and they ended up being a front-end developer or whatever. Again, fight that by being genuinely curious and ask them, how can I help? Which will fall into the parking lot item, as we have hinted that this will be coming later. The third one, and I find this very important also for the whole Agile methodology, is the confirmation bias. Once we want something to work, we're going to do our best to make it work, and so does our brain. So in research, we call it, like there's a big fight in the community, or there used to be back in the days, that we don't call it validation research. You know the term, right? Because validation means that you've already formulated a hypothesis and you're leaning already towards verifying that hypothesis, right? It should happen at the end of every sprint that we actually throw our work into either A/B testing or whether you're doing qualitative testing in your company or your team. Now, even how we phrase things in the stand-up, believing something is quite different from having data to support it. And it's not like we're all going to walk out the room and not have any of these biases, but those three pillars are also fundamental into how you interview people. People who you want to join, you want them to join your team. You know the phrase that people hire themselves, right? It's exactly because of those biases and how we naturally tend to collaborate better with some people. See something, do something. As Anastasia has already mentioned, by being an observer, you're actually giving permission, and that applies to pretty much everything in life. This is basically the general content that you can take a picture of. I'll put it into the stand-up context. So when something is off, and you can feel it, and you can trust your gut in it, and nobody laughs, I would encourage you, and that's my personal favorite tactic actually, I just glare. I just glare at the person so much that they start feeling uncomfortable with what they just said. And if the target is the team member who's actually attending the stand-up, after this, silence does wonders, right? I know I speak a lot, so you can imagine how awkward it appears when I actually get dead silent. When nobody laughs, you can simply glare at the person. You can give them a chance by using your driest face, right? No cynicism, no nothing. Just ask them, what do you mean exactly? And I then ask the person who's the target, how did that make you feel? I actually interrupt stand-ups as a Scrum Master because I cannot expect that those people will go to work with having bitterness and I'll solve things, and they're going to do a handover in an hour and say, oh yeah, I have a question. I'm definitely going to ask this person what they meant. No, that's not going to happen. It's basically going to come back as a boomerang to me. Either I'm a Scrum Master or whether I'm a product owner. So understanding that something is off might be like far from racism or sexism, which is absolutely something you should first of all raise on a one-on-one and actually have a retrospective, which is another ritual, as you all know, that everybody gets a fair share of helping other people understand them, how they feel, because at the end of the day, communication is what makes us collaborate well. And if it fails, then we also fail as a team. That's the slide, actually, Anastasia prepared that you can take a picture of. Here's your chance. No? Okay, I'm moving on to the next one. Take it. Yeah, go ahead. Thank you. The third one is passing the mic. So it's a wonderful context, right? Because during a daily stand-up, you're not supposed to be interrupting the person who, as the designated Orthodox Scrum back in the 80s says, the person who holds the bowl, it used to be a bowl, right? And says, what have I done yesterday, what I plan to do today, and whether I have any blockers, is the only person speaking. That, of course, falls away from how it's implemented and the reality of the matter. So I'll share with you 2 tips. So we have replaced creatively, and this is where I encourage you to get super creative. We had replaced the ball with a flamingo. It was actually a massive, like vibrant pink bingo the flamingo. So we would actually carry a massive flamingo around us to ensure that the person has a fair share to speak. And you might think this was a cosmetics client. You're wrong, it was Audi. It was actually guys from the automotive industry that they were very happily hold Bingo the Flamingo. This actually visualizes and embodies how we should all respect the person speaking. This also gives the element of, surprise by fighting those stereotypes that we spoke before. Another trick that you can do is ask, and especially if you have a big team of internationals or different disciplines, expertise or experience, ask them to share a personal story. Like, you might be surprised, and I think I was also surprising people as a female Greek, from a design background working in technology, that I have a passion for craft beer. So I would always tell stories about IPAs and why IPAs and what does it mean. And actually, I found that, the developers would relate more to me afterwards. But, it's important to fight those stereotypes by digging into the core of the person and also make the meeting less boring, because we all know it, right? It can get awfully boring. Once you see somebody interrupting, you don't have to be the Scrum Master or the product owner or the team lead. Actually, vocalize that, saying the person was speaking, right? And the notorious hijacking, I hope you haven't, but it's actually quite common. I've experienced it, is the junior member, let's say the junior data analyst, right, is hijacked before they can even finish their sentence of the blocker they have by the director that says, have you considered this? Have you considered that? Have you considered B, C, D, blah, 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 blah. So the golden rule that has served wonders to me is quite simple. If you have a comment and you can see the problem, you're going to help your team members solve it. So flag it equals actually putting your hands on the ground together and helping the person solve it afterwards. This has paid off very well, I have to say, and I really recommend it. If you're the Scrum Master or the product owner, it's a really good rule, because the blockers that people think they have, some of them cannot necessarily be solved into the parking lot, right? Some interruptions can go into the parking lot. So this is why the parking lot is your biggest ally and the great defender. If it's a discussion, move it to the parking lot. The rest of the team can go, but also realizing how you cannot allow other people to outsmart team members or prove that they're better. We all have one goal, and that is to solve the problem and the challenge that we have for our goal in this sprint. Yes, my last trick for today. You know who's going to be the silent, basically, in the room, and you know who's going to be the one that need a bit of support. So quite often, it might be the intern or the most junior dev who has a wonderful idea that they've shared over in, on Slack or Teams or whatever messaging app you're using. Now, you can actually use that as an agent and put it into the daily stand-up. Even if they're too shy to mention it, this is where you can be a great ally, right? You can actually say, hey, have you done any progress or your idea? Can you share with us some updates, perhaps? Or you can also ask for reverse mentoring. So I would always encourage the tech lead, if they were part of the team, to share their blockers with the junior devs. And you're going to be surprised on, first of all, how encouraged the team was to be vocal about their challenges. Second, it created this, humility that we're all here to solve one goal. So act as an amplifier and bring those invisible ideas to stage. That's it on me.
Thank you very much, Anastasia. So yes, now closing this small workshop, remember that every interaction matters and that allyship, as I said before, it's not a single action. It is a journey, and an important note is that you have to be willing to learn from your mistakes, because everybody makes mistakes, and change them and move forward. Thank you so much for being here today. Follow us on our social media. And of course, you can find us at the community corner. We are with our booth, and come to see if we can collaborate. We have also some small surprises for you. We look forward to see you. Thank you.